That's the avatar cycle. Of course. They're avatars. All these people are your past lives, Aang.
Hey SUBFURIES! What do you mean my hair looks weird? Truth be told, I agonized over whether or not I should make this video because things for me are just hectic right now. But I'm gonna do it. I have to do it. The community asked for it. Lord Mishka demanded it. And who am I to refuse our supreme leader? All hail Mishka! Also, if you only watch my avatar videos, remember to click the link down below to vote for what you think should be the official SUBFURY t-shirt. We've had some amazing designs and I'd love your help to choose the winner. So it's well established and often referenced that the avatar reincarnates. Reincarnation, broadly speaking, because I am not a Hindu or a Buddhist scholar, is the rebirth of an entity into another form after its previous form dies. The avatar clearly reincarnates from one nation to the other, air, water, earth, and then fire. And the most obvious point of their reincarnation is when Rava states in Beginnings Part 2,
"We will be together for all of your lifetimes."
She's talking specifically about one being reborn again. But what actually reincarnates, exactly? What does Korra inherit from Aang, or Aang from Roku, or them all from Avatar 1, as Rava implies? Because the first and most obvious point is that the personality of the Avatar is not carried over. Korra and Aang are opposites in almost every single way. One was impulsive while Aang was measured, Roku withheld judgment while Korra seemed all too keen to dish it out. And their genders and sexuality aren't consistent either, which is a whole nother question entirely. For a while I considered that perhaps the moral compass, the way that the Avatar perceived right and wrong, would be carried over from past lives. They're all pretty good people. Both Avatar Roku and Avatar Aang didn't feel that they could take the Fire Lord's life. She shows us that avatars can definitely view right and wrong differently. And later on in The Promise Part 3, Aang and Roku fundamentally disagree on whether or not it was right or wrong to take Zuko's life, actually resulting in Aang damaging his spiritual relationship with Roku. So avatars definitely have moral differences. Like Spyro thinks it's okay to bully me. I disagree. You're stupid. You know, these things really hurt me, Spyro. We're going to couples counseling to work all this out. The way these moral differences between avatars can be explained is by the thing that all avatars have in common. They are all bound to Rava, the spirit of goodness and peace. This drive to do good in the world does carry over each of the avatar incarnations. I think it's ingrained into the avatar spirit. I actually don't think that the avatar is capable of being evil. But as we talked about morality before, the way in which they do good in the world is determined by that individual avatar. Kyoshi was utilitarian, Aang was largely pacifist, and Korra had a uniquely objective view of right and wrong. So their genders, sexuality, morality, and personality change from life to life. But what about powers? Once again, nope. Korra was reasonably good at all of the elements from a young age, while Aang struggled to create even a small flame for quite a while. On top of this, Avatar Roku points out about the Avatar state.
Designed to empower you with the skills and knowledge of all the past avatars.
The Avatar state itself exemplifies that the skills, the powers, and elemental knowledge doesn't normally carry over from life to life. Now, a number of things impact whether or not you have the ability to bend, if you have advanced bending techniques, but I won't get into all of that now. I'll do a whole video discussing the complexities of that subject another time. But it really does appear that the same laws of bending apply to the Avatar as they do to everyone else, with the exception that of course the Avatar can bend all 4 elements. But in spite of all this, the Avatar does reincarnate. We get too many references throughout the series of Aang or Korra feeling some connection to their past lives. Aang recognizes Roku's name without even knowing him.
Who is that? That's Avatar Roku, the avatar before me. How do you know his name? I'm not sure. I just know it somehow.
Korra recognizes Wan's teapot as her own.
My teapot!
That's right. It was yours long, long ago, when you were Avatar 1.
And most importantly, when the air nomads are trying to find out who the Avatar is, they do a small test. They put a baby in a room full of toys and get them to pick out the ones that they want. Just like Aang did, the Avatar instinctively picks out the toys that belonged to previous avatars.
You chose them because they were familiar.
I mean, this was a tried and tested method. These little connections tell us clearly that avatars do retain something of their previous lives, even on a subliminal level. On an interesting side note, the air nomads were influenced by Tibetan Buddhist culture and philosophy, and the role of the avatar is uncannily similar to the role of the spiritual leader, the Dalai Lama, another figure who famously reincarnates into a new body, just like the avatar does. And funnily enough, that same method of getting the babies to choose the relics of previous leaders is used to find the Dalai Lama as well. There's the fact of the day that you didn't need to know. Now, some people have suggested that the reasons there are so many differences from avatar to avatar is because they are not the same spirit. That with every new lifetime, Rava adds a new spirit to her, and she links all of these different spirits together. So the avatar spirit wouldn't be one, but many, with Rava acting like a hive mind. They say that this is why the avatar spirits can interact with one another as if they are different people, but this just doesn't add up in my mind. The avatar spirit was created when Wan and Rava merged during harmonic convergence. It required an enormous amount of energy and was incredibly dangerous. Rava specifically said,
Harmonic convergence is nearly over. We must return to the spirit world so we can fuse once again.
There is simply no way that Rava could merge herself with a new human spirit every single lifetime, let alone like a baby. Plus, she actually said,
We will be together for all of your lifetimes.
There wasn't any ambiguity there to me, and I have no reason to doubt that Rava knew what she was talking about. We saw from earlier in the episode that Rava understood the consequences of two spirits merging together. Side note, I am really far behind on this intellectual property essay that I have to write, and I should probably get onto working on that. I have this like weird justification in my head that says, don't worry Tim, you don't have to work on your law degree, you're clearly working towards your guaranteed future with YouTube. Thank you brain, that totally makes sense. Back to it! No, the answer is a little more nuanced. The reason that the avatar reincarnates is because of the avatar spirit. Not just Rava, but Rava and Wan combined. Their spirits were literally fused together, as I talked about in a previous video. You can click the link up in the corner of the screen to watch that. But Rava cannot die, meaning that the human spirit that she is tied to can't either. However, the frail human body that it inhabits can wither and die, so when it does, it goes on to find a new body to inhabit. As it was, life found a way. But how reincarnation really works comes down to how the soul or the spirit works. So it's commonly believed that if you reincarnate, then you, yourself, with your personality and everything, if you die, moves from your body and into, say, an animal. But that's not really how it works. Okay Tim, you can do this. I'm going to put this in as simple terms as possible because philosophy and religion is really hard. What might be called a soul in Buddhist teachings isn't like an ethereal form of a person with their personality, beliefs and everything. It's more like the spark of life or the gift of consciousness being passed on, rather than the beliefs or personality of the person that inhabited that body. So when Rava tells Wan that they will be together for all of his lifetimes, it was his spark, that capacity for consciousness being passed on to all of the avatars after him. But that doesn't explain the toys, the teapot, and recognizing Roku. Good point, you sadistic half-cabbage. The personality wasn't just left behind. Wan didn't just vanish. Korra and Aang had access to all of the experiences and memories of past avatars, albeit with a little help. So I looked into the canon, but I couldn't find a concrete answer to this question. So these are just my thoughts, my conjecture, my understanding of how this works, and I would love to hear what you think down below in the comments. It's my personal understanding that while the avatar spirit is Rava and Wan combined, there are two halves to this avatar spirit, a human half and an ancient spirit half. Now, while fused together, these two halves have different roles in what we would call the avatar spirit. One of them does the household chores, while one of them brings home the bacon. No, but we know that they have different roles or different abilities because at the end of season 2 of Legend of Korra, Rava and Korra are separated. Rava actually dies in a sense. Yet even without Rava, Korra keeps the ability to bend all 4 elements, telling me that the human half of the avatar spirit carries the capacity to bend all 4 elements from one life to the next. Which makes sense because spirits cannot bend the elements, and no, energy bending doesn't count. But killing Rava severs Korra's connection to any of her past lives. It wipes any memory of them. This tells me that while the human half of the Avatar spirit doesn't retain the personality of previous avatars, the Rava half does. It retains the memories, beliefs, and ideologies as echoes of all of these past avatars. The reason for this, I think, is that Rava never died like Wan's physical body did. It was all one life to her, so these personalities just kept on adding up inside of her. Just being fused with the human half of the Avatar spirit would be enough to explain these subliminal links, the toys, the teapot, the name. But a curious question would be, what other roles do the Rava half or the human half of the Avatar spirit have? Like, for example, I think the human half gives the Avatar spirit the capacity to inhabit a mortal body, but as explained before, it's the Rava half that actually allows it to be reborn, because Rava does not die. But that's all from me, SUBFURIES. My question to you is, if you were going to reincarnate, what would you like to reincarnate into? Fictional, animal, or not? If you have any other Avatar questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments for me below, and in the meantime, I'd love for you to support me on Patreon, email me or follow me on Twitter, Wattpad, Facebook, or send me stuff that you've made. The address or the links in the description below. Stay nerdy, SUBFURIES, and I'll see you in the future.